Hello, I'm Kats, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. So today's topic is going to be the latest iteration of the Heroes Path, specifically the Sweethearts Path. Aw, for Valentine's Day, or I guess associated with the time period of Valentine's Day. Obviously, that was a week ago. But it is going to be the effective summon rush for the Noldua Fusion, where you do have an opportunity to get her soul and or Solinar's soul, which is kind of an interesting offering, despite having no vision, at least thus far, that there is a guaranteed way to get Solinar. So that should weigh into your decision on whether or not you really care that much about this path. But regardless, if you're going for her, the champion, you're going to need to participate at least somewhat in this Heroes Path. So as I mentioned, it is partially the summon rush for the fusion, but it is also a little bit of Gear Hunters, Dungeon Divers, if you will. As you can see there in the info tab, we have the standard, let me get the mystery shards on the screen there, my big head. But yeah, so Dungeon Divers aspect, we do have the shard summon rush aspect, and I always like to point out here that, you know, everyone jumps to the Sacreds, Voids, and or Primals because they give you the most points, but don't count out the mystery shards. It's only 3 points per, but obviously they're the most plentiful shards in the game, and you can burn through mystery shards like no one's business. So don't underestimate the power of mystery shards. If you need like a, you know, couple hundred or a, you know, 1,000 points really quickly, don't forget about mystery shards. But yeah, the bulk of your points are going to come from pulling some of your primary shards, depending upon your goals. We'll talk about the progressive chance in a second here. And then you can supplement that with a little bit of Dungeon Divers. But notably, this Heroes Path only goes on for 3 days, so you have a lot less time to get in some Dungeon Divers credit, but nonetheless, it still exists, so might as well take advantage of it. Now, normally I don't really talk about the progressive chance champions, but they've done something that they haven't done for a very, very long time in this iteration, so I did want to bring it up just to kind of mention it and level set with you guys about the opportunity or lack thereof when it comes to these boosted or the higher odds of getting one of these champions. So for the Void Shards, it's pretty standard in terms of the offerings here, or the you know, that's one slot here, 15x, it goes up to 20, goes up to 25. You get to choose from these 4 champions, and notably Solinar is up for grabs. And for the current amount of legendaries in the Void legendary pool, you have a roughly 16% chance of getting Solinar if you were to get a legendary in the first place. So not great, but a lot better than the non-void equivalent. However, for all of the non-void shards, there are actually 2 legendary slots, meaning that you do have to fill both of them in order to get to activate the progressive chance. And so this does actually change the math a little bit. So normally when there's a single 15x going on there for non-voids from, let's say, for example, Sacred Shards, you have about a 6.5% chance of getting the one that you selected, assuming you get a legendary at all in the first place. But it doesn't quite double necessarily when you add in 2, but it gets close. So when you have 2 champions in there, overall, there is a 12% chance that you will get one of the 2 champions, but you divide that by 2, and that means that there's a 6% chance that you'll get the one that you might be looking for. So it just means that overall, you have practically double the odds of getting one of the champions that you selected compared to neither of the champions that you selected. But still, you know, there's still an 88% chance that you're not going to get them, right? So it gets it closer to where the baseline single void one is. So if they ever do, and they never have, but if they ever do multiple slots for void legendaries, it's actually, maybe they have done it in the past, but they haven't done it for a long time. But if they have more than one slot in voids, it's actually quite likely that you're going to get one of them if you get a legendary. Just, you know, relatively speaking, it's about like 30%. So it can kind of add up to a substantial amount of potential when you have more slots in order to get anyone from the slots. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here talking about the champions that we probably won't get from pulling our shards. Let's dive into the path itself. So this one, thankfully, is one of those relatively straightforward paths, and we'll talk about a few options that you might want to be able to go for. So we have the center path means that you need to get the keys here. You don't start with any keys, so that the first thing I look for is, are there any keys? Where are they? And what do you have to do to get them? So you can already note there that you have 5 fragments here for the fusion that go down to 5 more fragments. So 15 at least are behind the keys, and the keys are located here on the left and the right hand side, meaning that you do have to come down the left hand and the right hand side independently, and through that you will get at least 10 of the fusion fragments just getting the keys. So it is relatively cheap to get 15, which is typically what you should need if you have done the champion chase already. But if you do need all 25, it should be a little bit more, or will be a decent amount more expensive. Well, again, we'll discuss all of that. So the heroes' souls are here at the bottom. So unfortunately, you're going to have to go all the way through one of these rewards on either side in order to get out there. But yeah, 50,000 is pretty standard cost for the souls. And in my opinion, the Noldua soul 5-star, it could be useful. She gets some extra stats, but you know, she doesn't really need it in terms of PvP. Just having the pairing is going to be strong enough. But of course, having the blessing for the pairing could be useful, but that assumes you have Solinar, which we don't know if that's actually going to be a guaranteed event. For some historical context on that one, 2 years ago, we had White Queen Ancora enter the game alongside White King Narses, and all of us had the same skepticism we have right now, where we did not believe that they were going to offer him out for, you know, any event, but they did a guaranteed 110 Void Shards to get Narses. That's how I got mine on my account, if you were wondering. And basically, we were all in shock that they actually did that. However, the following year, last year, we had Esme the Dancer and Moto of the Peel. They were the Valentine's couple champions, and Moto of the Peel was not offered up in a guaranteed form at all. I think it was like a champion chase victory type deal. You can get him, but then again, he was relatively underwhelming, so maybe it's for the best. But anyways, so there's a precedent for both, for a guaranteed event and a non-guaranteed event as far as offering Solinar up for grabs. So the value of Solinar's soul kind of depends on whether or not you want to gamble on the fact that that is going to be the reality. And I don't know. I'm not convinced yet until I see whatever event might be coming down the pipeline. And so I would recommend that you probably just skip out on the souls. You can always farm them later from the soul merchant if you really, really need them. Or if you're lucky, one of the few like 20-something people that already have Solinar, then, or 20 or more people probably that have them, then you could get the souls and go for that. But yeah, it's kind of up to you whether or not these have value without the champions. So obviously, if you're skipping the fusion, then who cares, right? About all of this. But anyways, let's talk about a handful of paths that might be of interest to you. So notably, there's only one legendary tome, and it's on the well, I guess it doesn't really matter. It's on the right hand side here, but you can come down either path because this is one line of opportunity here. So if you wanted to come down the left hand or the right hand side and just get yourself one legendary tome, that'd be 28,000 points. If you wanted to do the same thing but get a mythical tome instead, it'd be 10,000 more than that, and then that'd be 38,000 points. If you're like me and you need to get 15 fragments from the fusion, so you come down the left hand side to the key, come down the right hand side to the key, come up here, open the key door, I guess you can call it, you get the last set of 5. That would be a total of 38,500, so basically equivalent to getting the mythical tome on its own. However, if you instead needed to get all 25, you basically do the same thing as the 15 and then continue down both of the center paths here to the 5 nodes, and that would cost you a grand total of 76,500 points, so an extra like 40,000 points, which is kind of ridiculous, but that is what that's what it entails. If you wanted to go for just one of the souls, obviously the cheapest way to do that would just be to get either the coins here or the legendary tome and then go for the soul. That'd be a grand total of 78,000 points. And then if you wanted both souls, you add 50,000 to that, so 128,000 points. Now, as usual, let's hop into the spreadsheet, which will be linked in the description box down below if you'd like a copy of this for yourself so you can follow along. But let's look a little bit deeper into the Gear Hunters section as well as the Summon Rush section. Those are the most pertinent, or the only pertinent events relative to this particular hero's path. So I always like to highlight this. This table here is just a summary of how many average points you're going to get per run and or per energy for running the most typically run dungeon stages. So normal mode 20, normal mode 24, 25, hard mode 6, and hard mode 10. So roughly 30 currency per run on average. Or if you want to think of it in terms of energy, you can see that stage 20 normal is still the most efficient stage in terms of cost per energy. But yeah, again, this is more icing on the cake. You can definitely get yourself several thousand points over the course of 3 days in terms of Dungeon Divers, but the bulk of your points, assuming you're going for any meaningful reward from this hero's path, is going to be from pulling shards. And so with that, we have the Summon Rush section here on the bottom right. And the main thing I like to point out here is that the Legendary Tome is around the typical price it is for a normal Summon Rush. Normally it's around 3,500 points, i.e. 7 Sacred's worth. So that's equivalent. I always like to make sure that benchmark is upheld. Mythical Tome for 9 is actually relatively cheap. Usually that's a bit further out in those normal Summon Rushes. Same thing, it's about 9 Sacred's worth for the 15 fragments. Jumps all the way up to 17 Sacred's worth of shards if you wanted to do the 25, or you needed to do the 25 fragments. The soul starts to go to 18, a little bit higher, and then 29 sacreds for both of the souls or equivalent. So obviously you can pull different types shards. But yeah, for me, it's just going to be some sacreds, and hopefully I can get this down to 7 to make it kind of in line with a typical fusion. We'll kind of see, play that by ear, but no promises on that one, but that would be ideal for me. But I guess this one. But yeah, I need to get the 15 fragments. That was my plan going in. I participated in the champion chase, so I got the 15 from that. So if you're curious, that is my going in plan. Now, if we hop back into the game real quickly, I'll just mention that in terms of how I'm actually going to do that, we obviously have a dragon tournament going on right now for the purpose of the fusion, but that ends today. So we're going to be grinding that all the way up to the 2250. And then is literally the second that I finish getting the 2250, I'm just going to burn however much energy is required to finish or to get to my goal of 7,000-ish points. I'm just going to burn that in the event dungeon and worry about that. So, well, actually, maybe not burn it all today because I still have a day and a half of the Hero's Path itself. So I'll burn some energy today in the event dungeon after I finish Dragon. Then tomorrow, kind of go hard as I need to finish it out, and then pull my shards tomorrow on the last day. That's my typical strategy when it comes to these, to minimize the amount of overall shards that I have to pull and maximize the usage of other terms of resources. And then essentially my formal recommendation for this Hero's Path is exactly the same thing. Kind of hold off on pulling until the last day if you can. So I know some people can't wait. They always want to jump in on the first day and pull their shards. But if you do some dungeon diving, some gear hunting prior, you just lower the cost of overall shards if you want to min-max a little bit. But you could also pull on day one. Doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's personal preference at the end of the day. But my formal recommendation is to do what I'm doing, which is just wait until the last day to pull so you can pull the least amount of shards possible. So there you have it. That's going to do it for the free-to-play review of the Sweethearts Path. Let me know in the comment section down below what your plan is relative to this path. Are you skipping the fusion, therefore you don't care anything about this path? Are you going for the fusion, therefore you need some amount of the fragments? Let me know how many you're going for in your comment as well. And do you care about the souls, one or the other, or both? Let me know all of that and more in the comment section down below. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. Really does help out the channel. And feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on the channel, for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.